so much for being here. I'm so glad that you were able to come on, and I absolutely loved reading Blackwicket. And I realized that's not your debut novel. You have another series out there.
Yeah, so The Cruel Dark, it's actually a standalone, and the novella is just the an alternate POV in the
Yeah.
main male character's POV. Yeah, it's the exact same story, just in the behind the scenes
Yeah.
POV. Yeah.
Well, I was absolutely in love with your writing style and the way you like construct gothic sort of paranormal supernatural stories. So you bet I'll be picking those up soon.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed them.
Oh, absolutely. But just to start off with, would you like to just introduce yourself and give a little pitch about Blackwicket?
I'm Bea Northwick, and Blackwicket is a dark gothic romantasy with elements of noir, horror, of course, romance, mystery, everything that I personally love to read and just smoosh together in one book.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And what was your sort of like inspiration for the world building? Because I noticed a lot of Peaky Blinder-esque sort of
Yeah.
costumes and all that stuff.
So I have a particular interest in vintage fashion from the 1900s on through the 1980s, that whole thing.
I can
But
see.
where I grew up has my hometown has a history of the 1920s, like prohibition, there are hidden casinos, that all that type of thing.
Wow.
And so that was always just something I was interested in that time period. And with Black Wicket, what I did was I took some of my favorite parts of aesthetics from different time periods, so from the 1920s through the 1950s, really, and just kind of pick and chose. I cherry picked some things that I liked with the clothing, like the vehicles, the vibes, and just kind of threw them all in there and mixed it together. So
Mm.
that's where, as far as the setting is concerned, that's where all of that came from.
Yeah, and I can see from your closet behind as well as your reels as well. You've definitely got the flavor for like that kind of fashion. And every time I was reading Eleonora, I kept picturing you until you posted the character art, and it was like so different from what I was picturing, just because you had embodied that kind of fashion in your reels as well. So I'm just letting you know.
No, that's awesome. I definitely, the costumes that I give my
Yeah.
characters are definitely things that I probably would love to wear myself.
Oh yeah, I literally every single time was picturing her in polka dot like dresses, and I was like, you can tell me whatever you want, it's not changing in my head. Not
I
until
love
the
that.
character art.
No, that's perfect.
With the magic setting and the curses, the curse eater, the drudges, there was definitely a lot of new magical elements that I felt like I had to learn while reading the book because I had never read something similar to this kind of magic system. But then as you start to get into the story and you start to see how that develops, you start to understand that this might sort of be a parallel to like your own insecurities almost and like the negativity that's left behind. But I
Yes,
was
exactly.
wondering, like, how did you come up with that idea if I am actually anywhere close to what you were intending on?
Yeah, no, exactly. You are right. It's bullseye. The magic system is meant to parallel all of the feelings that we have, that kind of haunt us, the specifically anger, rage,
Mm.
grief, all of those very negative feelings that feel very heavy and inescapable, sometimes. And then the natural magic is just if you can imagine being a child and what we hope that childhood feels like, that kind of natural magic and awe and security,
Mm.
that we hope childhood is, then that's like the natural magic that we all have. So
Yeah.
those were kind of the basis of that. The whole thing started when um, uh, I was talking to my therapist and I was talking about those feelings, those very negative feelings that sometimes feel extraordinarily overwhelming and you just can't
Mm.
escape, and that you feel like a monster sometimes.
Yeah.
And my therapist said, well, she's trying to protect you. That monster's trying
No.
to protect you. And
Yeah.
that image that came to my mind was just this gnarled, basically what a drudge ended up being,
Mm.
in the book. Just this gnarled, shadowy, awful figure who
Mm.
was doing its best to protect me in the worst possible way. Like it only has
Yeah.
it only knows what it needs to do, protect. It doesn't care how it's doing it. It doesn't care what it's burning down on the way.
Yep.
Um, so
Oh my
that's where
gosh.
yeah, that's where that whole idea started. And then um I enjoy folklore a lot,
Mm,
specifically Celtic folklore. And one of the stories is you'll hear about sin eaters. And
mm,
these are people who are called to deathbeds to take this in of people who are dying, so that depending on the situation, maybe they haven't been able to confess or they're not saved,
yeah.
whatnot. And so I took that and kind of turned it into a person who's able to take that pain
Mm,
from other people.
yeah.
And and that's pretty much the whole magic system, is for what I hoped was pretty intuitive to our own human
Yeah.
experiences. Um, yeah, so and then it just went from there as I was building it.
Yeah. And it makes sense to do it that way because the story basically follows like childhood trauma, massive
Mhm.
daddy issues, and that developing into just greed and lust for power, which are
Mhm.
also very real human issues. And if you don't know how to navigate them, then you end up, that's how you turn into a villain, that's how you turn into a hero, and that's where you stay in between. So I completely resonated with that. And as you were saying, the monster who tries to protect, like Auntie was just coming to my mind, and I was like, oh,
Yes,
that makes
I
sense.
I do love Auntie. She was probably the character that came to my mind, the very, very first one when
Yeah,
Blackwicket was first starting to be formed. She was like the initial thought.
right.
Yeah.
And don't know if you are allowed to talk about it, but are we going to see more of Auntie or whatever has become of her story so far in the next book?
So without giving anything away, there all of that, everything that
Yeah.
happened. And all of the creatures that resulted from it, that we get to know and experience, they do move forward.
Yeah.
This is not something I feel like can be easily extinguished.
Yeah.
It it lasts,
Yeah.
and it
That's the whole
lasts
point.
in the
Yeah.
characters. Yes,
Yeah.
inside of the characters, and it moves on with them. So even though Black Wicket is as technically it's considered a standalone with series potential because it ends
Yes.
the story ends. The story that's happening ends, but they move on to
Mm.
do something. What is it?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there will be, I do plan on doing more with the characters that are left.
Mm. Yeah.
And yeah, and definitely the Drudge and the Curses, those are all an integral part of the world and the building blocks
Yeah.
of it. Hmm.
I absolutely thought that as well because I think I got to like 85% of the book and I was like, well, this is over. What's the rest of the 15%?
Yeah.
This book has concluded. Let's leave it there. Let's not do anything to the remaining characters anymore. And that's when like the last 15% just opened up so many plot twists. And I think I was just on my story just going like, guys, what the hell just happened? Everyone read this. And it was like it wasn't out yet, so it's always just me recommending my friends. I'm like, you have to read this. It comes out in 3 weeks, but keep it on your radar. Because that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like a conclusion to a story. I felt like everything had resolved in my heart. I felt like the emotions were, you know, we're good. We've had our moment of going
Mhm.
through the emotional roller coaster and then it's settled. And then in the last 15%, two, three, four different storylines opened. I'm like, what is happening? Especially I
Yeah.
think like the last chapter. I'm not gonna say anything, but I remember reading that and there was just like the whole world in my head just fell apart. I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
where is this going?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a house of cards, and that
it
was kind
literally
of
is.
I'm glad you put it that way, that everything just sort of fell apart, because it was
Yeah,
the whole thing is a house of cards, and it does. By the end, it completely falls apart.
it's like I just felt lied to. I was like, where am I living right now? What is happening? But it was
I'm sorry, I did
spectacularly
it on
well done.
purpose though. Oh, that makes me so happy.
I'm
I
so
work
glad.
really hard to weave everything in, all the
Yeah,
even the little bitty things, so
yeah,
that there aren't any like loose ends or useless information.
Yeah.
Obviously not perfect. You can't fix absolutely everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm glad it landed for you.
Yeah. And with the curses, and we have basically a brothel slash drug cartel situation,
Mhm.
which involves the curses, which gives like euphoric highs, but also leaves the people, like with an addiction, basically. And that's what all I could keep thinking about, like Pablo Escobar, drug cartels, and no, literally, that's all that was going on in my head. And I was wondering what sort of like inspired that storyline, if there was any inspiration, or if you had the
Mhm.
characters already done, and then the story was kind of weaving itself around it.
So as far as the drug and addiction aspects of it,
Mm,
I think that that was more uh, of a natural, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of parallel
yeah,
um, to what was going on. So you have people who no longer have these positive feelings, this
yeah,
positive magic in their lives. It's gone
mm,
for whatever reason. And so they're going to be looking for that in
mm,
whatever manner they can get it. And when you are looking at how people who who no longer have good feelings,
mm,
their whole lives and their bodies and their minds are filled with just awful feelings, awful thoughts,
mm,
and how desperate they are to feel something good. And so, yeah, the parallel would be um, drug usage. And I think that that was just more of a natural thing that started to happen as I was outlining, because prohibition with alcohol was the original idea. And then from
yeah,
there, it just became this is much more intense, right?
yeah,
I feel than that would have been. So then it ended up kind of combining into this massive, very scary mental and physical experience of
yeah.
withdrawal and overdose and all of that.
Yeah, it was absolutely disheartening to see that, because like I'm sure a lot of people would have like people who suffer with addiction in their life, or people they know closely that have those kind of issues and don't even realize that they're suffering from it. And to see that still like the very real themes paralleled in a fantasy setting is what I think readers relate to the most and sucks them into the story. So I think that was incredibly well done. And it really brought like life to a lot of the morally grey decisions that the characters were making,
Mhm.
which I think nowadays morally grey just is a synonym for human complexities, which is everyone. So
Yeah.
seeing like an
Hmm.
actual active decision made by characters that want to stay good and true but can't because of their circumstances was really refreshing to see.
Yeah, and then of course you have characters who aren't trying. They're not actively
Yeah.
trying to be evil, but they know where they are. They
Yeah,
know what's going on, and they know what it's going to take to survive it. And
absolutely.
they have come to terms with that.
Mm,
And they are going to move forward in that way. And that's where I feel like the morally gray comes in strong for any book, really, is that you have characters who know what needs to be done,
mm,
and they're not actively trying to be evil. They're not actively trying to do harm. They're just trying to survive,
yeah,
and reach whatever goal they have.
yeah.
And for some characters, it's retribution,
Mm,
and other characters, it's simple survival. But yeah, it's basically when you give up your moral compass, just not to be actively terrible,
yeah.
but to keep swimming, to stay afloat.
Absolutely. And I think also sometimes it's so hard for even us as humans to like confront the fact that we're not perfect. We have issues. It's okay not to strive for like perfection in life. It's okay
Mhm.
to accept that we have a lot of flaws, and what are we going to do about that? Or are we
Yeah.
going to do anything about it? Does it harm anyone? Does it harm us? Is it okay to accept it as a personality trait? And that was something that I could see like some characters were very okay and had accepted what they are. And they're just like, that's me. That's what I'm embracing.
Mhm.
Whatever anyone else says, whatever, I can't really do anything about it. But then there's others who are either running away from it, either trying to like correct their mistakes, either have responsibility of children or their other people in their life that they really care and protect, but they're just forced into situations where they're like, they just have to make really difficult decisions.
hmm
Yeah.
And that was what I was hoping to convey is that for a lot of people, the circumstances and situations that they're in doesn't give them a lot of wiggle room
Yeah, absolutely.
to make better decisions.
Yeah, and you can't even blame them. As a reader, there were certain characters where I was like, I get it. I mean, it sucks, but I get it because it would be so hard to be in that place. But yeah, speaking of the concept of children, and I could see that children in all cultures and all mythologies are always considered like the symbol of innocence, purity, untainted by, say, sins, or just don't have a mind to create, like, do anything harmful willingly. And I'm assuming that's why the concept of children in the story was also used as they're so innocent that you can kind of fill them up with curses and whatnot. And that was very heartbreaking to read. But yeah, if you want to elaborate on that part.
Yeah, so m more than innocence, it was about the power that
Yeah.
children truly have to exist in this world, the
Mm,
strength and resilience that they have um, to deal with hardships.
yeah.
Um, and so when you're using a child then who has all of this natural awe and hope,
Mm,
right? And so natural magic. And then you're using them to filter heinous
yeah.
feelings and experiences to make yourself the adults feel better. I mean, there's so many different things that came to mind when I was writing
Yeah.
this. How people will have children to feel better if they don't feel
Mm,
right, or how children are exploited online,
yeah.
for likes and clicks to
Oh
like
my gosh.
make other
Yes.
people happy. And then of course just the natural way that children have to make you happy, at least for me
Yeah.
in my experience, is that you do feel more hopeful. You do feel stronger. I feel whenever there is a child around.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. For me specifically, it makes me want to be a stronger, better person. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's a power in that. And so that was kind of, it was just a bunch of all of that. Like, yes, children in this particular world are the source now
Yeah.
that it's gone, for that natural power that everyone's lacking.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was actually thinking about it the other day because I work with kids over weekends, and one of this girl, she's about like 3.5, 4 years old. She just came up to me and she said, "I want cuddles." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I can give you cuddles," because she was definitely just having an emotional day. As girls, we go through it. Um, and I just had a moment where I thought, I'm like, she did not fear anything. She did not think about anything. She wanted cuddles. She just went for it. She didn't care that, like, be scared that someone's going to say no. She was
Mhm.
like, they'll give me a cuddle. And if they don't, I'll go to someone else and get my cuddles and I'll be fine. And I
Yeah.
just think that, like, there's so much strength in that because now as a grown up, I want cuddles all the time, but am I going to go ask someone for a
I'm
cuddle?
gonna go ask.
I'd probably get a restraining order against me.
We've lost the ability to reach out in that
Yeah.
way, you
And we
know?
isolate ourselves in a world where
Mhm.
it's become so easy to connect with each other. We've gone the other way, which is crazy. And that childlike innocence is so important. So when you spoke about the fact that children have like this natural power, that entire story, first of all, just made it even more sadder. Why the whole, using them for curses and stuff. It's just like a way people project their insecurities to make themselves feel better at the end of the day. That's kind of like the concept
Mhm.
of it. So yeah, no, that's brilliantly well done. I'm just looking back at the story right now and I'm just like, I need to change my Goodreads review a little bit. Gotta edit that. And speaking of our love interests, Eleonora and Mr. Victor Harrow, no, Detective Victor Harrow, Hunter. Oh my gosh, I'm
No,
missing
you're
the name.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Harrow,
he's
yes.
yeah, Harrow. Hmm
Yeah. Um, First of all, I love that we have detective versus girl on the run.
hmm
And there's this tension, there's this chemistry, but then also she knows that, well, he wants to put me in jail, and we don't know what's going on in his head. But as a detective, obviously, we want to believe that he needs answers and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I just love that it was like tension filled, but it had to be enemies to lovers because she can't go anywhere else with that. And then he's just like the banter of him just like walking into her house and be like, anyway, I'm taking that room upstairs. And she's just like, hello. What do you
Yeah.
mean? I
Yeah.
was wondering, what was your process of writing those two characters, developing that banter, that chemistry, and the spicy scenes as well?
So, their relationship, it is, oh, what do I say without, because I don't want to give
Yeah.
anything away. Um, as far as writing them as that detective noir aspect,
Mm,
right? And the femme fatale, which is Eleonora is supposed to represent, but is the exact opposite of
mm,
in
yeah.
so many ways. But they needed they needed something that was going to keep them at odds with each
Yeah.
other. And of course, you know that going into the story,
Yeah.
um, where they cannot trust each other.
No.
Even if they want to, they cannot. There's a circumstance or situation which doesn't allow trust. Of course, there's something going on with Victor that I cannot say that
Mm,
allows him, I think, to be the character that he is with
yeah.
Eleanor right up front. And then she's just pretty much petrified. I mean,
Yeah.
she is not a quivering, afraid character. She's not
No.
frightened. She's not a frightened woman, but she is afraid.
Yeah.
And she's not so much afraid of him as a person, but more of like what he represents,
Yeah.
who he represents. Yeah, so then gosh, I what can I say without because there's so many little things I wish I could talk
Yeah,
about,
I
but would just
know.
like
I think,
it would reveal too much.
yeah, what I
Um,
really liked was like they both clearly come from trauma
yes.
of
Yeah.
sorts, different kinds of traumas, and they could see that connection within each other, which was like
Mhm.
something as like especially like the first part of the book where we still have that slight tension. She doesn't really know what she's feeling towards him. She can see his heart, like that's pretty much
Yeah.
where her head's at. But then she's like, no, he's a detective, walk away. But you
Yeah.
can see like they can see past just like the aesthetic of each other, the horrors of each other, and they can see deep into each other's soul almost, which was quite like beautiful in the way like they would come towards conversations where they do want to say more, they do want to express more, but then they'll just like slap on a quick joke and walk away.
It's uncomfortable, and it was meant to be uncomfortable between them because both of them have n no idea about each other, about certain
Yeah.
aspects of each other. And they have to be very careful with each
Mm.
other because of that.
Yeah.
Um, there is in the beginning, either of them could be the death of the other person. I mean, we have no idea where this is going. And then as the story progresses, you don't know, you may assume, okay, this person is physically safe, but are they emotionally safe?
Yeah.
And, so they're just picking each other apart, and there's so much distrust, and there's so many unanswered questions. It's not miscommunication because they are telling each other as much as they can,
Mm.
especially towards the center, right? When
Yeah.
everything starts to happen to them as a couple instead of individually.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that the banter comes from the fact that they both want to make a connection and then
Yeah.
have those blocks. They have blocks. They can't cross certain boundaries. They're scared to cross certain boundaries. They're also very angry. They're both
Yeah.
just very angry,
Yeah.
hurt people. And so it's kind of coming from from that well
Mm.
of you're not feeling nervous, right? You're not
Yeah.
nervous, your heart's not fluttering.
No.
You're angry, you're scared of the circumstances, you're confused, but also you think you might be finding an ally, maybe.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, and that connection inside all of the traumatic things that are already happening. So this
Yeah.
is one of the things I love about horror and romance together is the tension of the horror intensifies, in my opinion, the tension of the romance
Yeah.
when you're experiencing these things with someone.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, so I think that it just goes beautifully together. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I hope that answered the
No,
question. I
absolutely.
didn't ramble too much.
Not at all. And that actually like sparked a thought in me that that's completely that makes so much sense that the horror balances the relationship and kind of like the limits and the extent they push it to because oftentimes would say dark romances or pitch black romances, which are known for like just violent behaviors or like extreme intimacy in ways that no one should recreate in their normal day-to-day life. Um, and sometimes it started to make sense to me that it's because of like the trauma that they deal with as characters, which is just so intense. They're being sold into prostitution. They're being used by all these other people. Like the world is just doing the most heinous things to them. And that's why they experience pleasure and love and emotion in this really like extreme measure and extreme fashion because they don't know anything else. And it matches the rest of the story. It matches the rest of the contents of their world, which I think makes sense exactly like how you've described it. Like it has to be in parallel with the world building. Otherwise, it just one of the aspects will start to fall a bit flat.
I think that there is a valid psychological point and need in literature and in conversation.
Mm,
Conversations we have about female sexuality and relationships and desire and all of these
yeah.
things that dark romance belongs in.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, the those ideas of intensity,
yes.
right? The intensity of things happening. So that is that you can definitely draw parallels to horror and romance,
Mm,
kind of upping that intensity. For the books that I write, the horror is outside of the romance.
yeah.
There's nothing horrific happening in between the characters in an
Yeah.
intimate way. But yeah, that's what it's there for. It's there to kind of like add fuel to the fire that's already
Yeah.
burning. Mhm.
Absolutely. And in terms of your writing style, something I really fell in love with was your Gothic sort of poetic literature. And I was wondering, are there any particular authors or books that inspire that kind of writing in you, or are you just born a genius?
Not born a genius. Um, it's definitely just a combination of all of the books that I've read and loved, growing up, and the sorts of things that I enjoy reading.
Mm,
Um, as as a little girl,
mm,
the fantasy books that I was reading were a lot more purple prosy. Back in
mm.
the 90s. I was born in the 80s. So back in the 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s, I'm reading all of these books that my mother has.
Yeah.
I'm navigating out of the children's library and into the adult library. So all of these novels are coming from that time where like gothic pulp fiction was really big. Um and romance from Nora Roberts and is very floral
Mm,
um way things were written. And I read a lot of fantasy growing up. And and so it just kind of all pulled together and then created something. I
yeah.
don't I don't actively try to write one way or another. It's
Mm,
just what sounds good to me
yeah.
um on the page um and yeah, so that's kind of where all that came from. Just so many different um, seeds that were
Yeah.
planted over a lifetime of reading.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best thing about like a sort of like poetic literature style writing is you have to dive into symbolism to give life and weight to the words that are being used, and you have to really think about and consider every word that goes on into the story, which I just think is like so brilliant the way authors write 10,000, no, not probably more than that, 100,000 words. Isn't that like the kind of
Oh,
limit or yeah,
yeah. Oh, easy. I mean, it depends on what
yeah,
genre you're writing. For
yeah.
fantasy, it's 100,000 words over.
Yeah,
Very, very easy. Yeah.
which is insanity in a nutshell. But
It feels like it. While
yeah,
it's happening, it feels like it.
absolutely. And with constructing such stories, especially with yours, where you have to sort of like plant intentional breadcrumbs throughout the way for the ending and the plot twist to be a plot twist and come full
Mhm.
circle. How does the process of constructing this story look like for you?
For me, it starts with that seed, that thought,
Mm,
and how with the brainstorming. So the first process is brainstorming. I sit with
mm,
the idea and I have a couple of beats. They don't connect in any way. They're just scenes that kind of cinematically are playing in my mind. I've shaped the people or the characters that I know that I want to be present. Um, and then I try to connect them in a very bare bones way. How do we
Yeah.
get from point A to point B, point C to the end? And we're just talking like little dots, very scant. And then once I have a general um s- not even a skeleton, just like the very kind of breadth of it, I
Mm.
suppose, I'll start outlining.
Yeah.
And that's when we start doing the beats and the arcs and the pacing and all of that, right? And then I just get more and more detailed. We start with that skeleton outline, and then I go back through, change any big pictures, and then add in all of the details.
Yeah.
Slowly start building it up. And then once that makes it easier for me to change like those little threads.
Yeah.
So if something changes at the end and I'm like, oh no, that
Yeah.
completely erases all of this, or now I have a loose end, so much easier to go back
Yeah.
into a draft, or not a draft, an outline draft, instead
Yeah.
of a full 100,000, 120,000 words and
Oh, yeah.
try to alter. I used to be what's called a pantser. The first two books I ever wrote, which did not see the light of day, that was hellish. That experience of editing, because you
Yeah.
have all of this information. It's just
Yeah.
so heavy. And when you're outlining and you're dealing with the outline, it's a lot easier to move. And then
Yeah.
once I know that I have it, pretty much, then I go back and I draft.
Yeah.
And that just when I think anyway, for me, when I'm writing a mystery or something where I know there's going to be a plot twist,
Yeah.
I have to be able to have easily move aroundable pieces. I could have said that
Yeah.
different, but that's how it came out. The
No, that's
pieces need
fair.
to be able,
It's
the
first
pieces
draft
need
things.
to be able to be moved easily.
Yeah.
Um and so yeah, I keep it outlined for a very, very long time. But the good part of that is by the time I'm ready to draft,
Yeah.
drafting goes pretty fast.
Wow.
Um
That's a
because
first.
everything there's no there's no stopping to guess what's next.
Mm.
Um, I do get stuck with descriptions where I'll just sit there and stare out into space because I'm like imagining
Yeah.
everything. But other than that, it moves pretty quickly because all of the big things are
Yeah.
already done,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I would say the bulk of my writing happens in my outlines.
I think that's a very methodological process. I definitely have spoken to authors for this podcast who just say that they start writing and they take years for that draft to complete because they just need the characters to do their job. And I just thought that that's an insane way to put it, but I kind of get it. But this is probably
Yeah,
the approach as someone who makes notes of every single detail would probably take.
I think that everybody's brains are different,
Yeah.
and pantsing a novel for some brains is the perfect way to go.
Yeah.
Because if you outline, you think too much about it, it's too easy to change. You're not getting words on paper, which is what
Yeah.
drives you. Um, for I have unfortunately a bit of a perfectionist
Yeah.
personality, and outlines help me with that because if I'm
Yeah.
trying to draft it,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get each sentence absolutely perfect before I move on, and how am I ever
Yeah.
going to figure
It's going
out
to
what's
put you
actually
off from
happening?
continuing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get stuck and you're
Hmm.
staring at a blank page and you're like, well, now what? And you're not excited. If you have my personality, you're not excited about it because you know you're going to get stuck trying
Yeah.
to make the sentence perfect.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'd much rather my outline be a trash fire,
Yeah.
absolute trash fire, than my first draft be the absolute trash. It still is. Now, I'm not saying my first
Yeah.
drafts are beautiful. They're just not as trash fiery as they could be
It's
because
good
that's where
enough
my
in your
outline.
standards to not scrap it.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I completely feel you. Even for uni, when I take notes, if my handwriting is off by like a margin, that
Yeah.
entire page comes out of my book. I'm not even kidding. It's the most
Yeah.
frustrating process. Slowly, I had to work on that perfectionist behavior because I'm not a perfect person, but my standards for myself are well beyond what I can achieve. I need to
Well,
reduce that.
it's a safety thing.
Yeah,
It's a control thing. If we can control this and we can make this correct and we can make this the way we want it,
yeah.
then we have some aspect of control over our world.
Okay.
When
That's
things
gonna
outside of us definitely feel out of control. Oh, I've this
gonna be
has
a
been a conversation
self-reflection
I've
bit.
had many, many times.
Yeah.
Perfectionist tendencies.
Yeah.
Um, so So yeah,
No, that's
that's my
very,
podcast.
yeah, very well put. And it's going to be a moment of staring into the abyss after this call for me because I'm like, oh, she gave me a reality check.
That
No,
is just
no, it's true though. It's absolutely
yeah.
true. And that usually it happens when things outside of your life like start to fall apart, like breakups or friendships
Hmm.
disrupting or family issues. And then you're like, what can I control? I'm gonna work on that and I'm gonna bloody
Yeah.
work on that to the point
Yeah.
that it's even more frustrating because yeah, I can't even imagine like in those situations being someone who's drafting a book because so many times I speak to authors who are inspired or like not even inspired but motivated to create a story after something very significant happening in their life, like the passing
Mhm.
of a friend or a divorce or something that's very emotionally jarring, and they use that and channel that energy into writing a book. And I just thought that that makes sense, but I think I would just be that would just become a journal, and that would not be fun for anyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the writing, and you hear this, you've heard this so many times. If you're a reader, you've heard authors talk about how fiction is just it's life.
Yeah,
It's a lie, but it's life.
yeah,
And any book that an author writes, unless they're actively writing a book on purpose that is not meant to reflect them and themselves in any way at all or their experiences,
yeah.
um, part of it is going to be a journal. The situation and circumstances of the characters may be different,
Mm,
but the feelings are going to be the same. And I think that's where the human experience, that's where good writing is. That's where good writing
absolutely.
lives,
Yeah,
because we can feel that and we relate to it as readers.
yeah,
When you pick something up and you can tell um, that this person has felt this thing,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, there's just a connection that happens.
Yeah. And even speaking of like your main character, Eleonora, when we see like flashbacks to her as a child and then we see the present time her. And what I love seeing is there's one event that happens in the middle that kind of completely shifts her personality from this outgoing, bubbly girl who just isn't scared of anything and let me give everything a go to the point that it causes her self-harm, but she just does it, and that was her personality. And then we see on the other side, oh, it makes sense. She's a younger child. Yeah. And then we see on the other side of it where in present day she's a lot more cautious. She's a lot more like not reserved. She's very outgoing and like isn't afraid to like take those challenges on hand, but she keeps her feelings and her story and her things to herself. She's not very trusting with sharing any of that. And it's all because of, call it family trauma or just the relationships falling apart within her siblings and whatnot. And yeah, that's one event that kind of shifts her personality. So I was wondering, like, when you construct these characters and you construct their personality, their emotions, the events that change and shift their dynamics, how does that process look like?
It's just, part of the outlines when I'm looking
Yeah,
at my characters in the beginning, and trying to find how they came to be where they were. Um, with Eleonora's experience, it's about coming home and finding that your home isn't what you thought it was. Well, like these beautiful memories you have as a child, the people who you trusted and believed in and loved,
yeah,
the things that you believed strongly in that were hurting you and you did not know until you were an adult,
yeah,
that you were struggling, or that this wasn't correct, or
yeah,
that people aren't perfect, all of these things from the most like mediocre thing, like people aren't perfect. You learn that as an adult, right?
yep.
Everybody learns that. To the this person was actually harming me.
Yeah,
Um, and I loved them so much and believed that they were the most important person in the world.
yeah,
Um, that whole spectrum of coming back to your childhood and seeing it differently. And so
yeah,
that was kind of the springboard for Eleonora. Um, the childhood that she had, and then that breaking point, where the cracks started to show and she wasn't sure,
yeah,
so she went away. And then when she comes back, she is expecting it to be awful, but she's also expecting it to be lovely in some
yeah.
ways, coming back to her childhood, and it's not.
No.
Um, And so that's kind of where her experiences are
Yeah.
coming off of. And then with Victor, oh, I can't say that. No, I, I almost did. To mirror it, I will say the other characters who have experienced something similar in a different
Mm.
way, and what coming home means for them, or what being
Yeah.
home and filling the shoes of the adults in their lives means.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then you just make a path
Yeah.
for those feelings and the and whatnot. You have the feelings, you know how what you want to portray and how you want to
Yeah.
express it, and then you just create the vessel for it.
Yeah.
That you put the story around it. Yeah.
It's so incredible that some books have like points in their story where you know this is going to impact the reader, make them quite emotional. Like it's developed that way. But what I noticed with your book was there wasn't a singular point that was like that's going to hit the emotional chord in the reader. It was more so just a build up from the very start, and as you start to understand the characters, the nature of it, the trauma, the way they're dealing with it, what's going on in their mind, because it's so real. Like it's such real human emotions that everyone goes through it. That there were so many points that I was just like, don't break down, keep going. Don't break down, keep going, because you can just see like how much they're like struggling inside to and like putting on, of course, like this facade to the world, but they're struggling so much inside, and they're just taking on the weight of literally as curse eaters taking on the weight of
Mhm.
everyone else's issues and traumas on themselves, and just accepting that and moving on from it. And it's just like it definitely hits home when you think about like the amount of times you do that too, even though you're rooting for a character and you're saying, no, don't do that. Just be open about it. Just share it with this person, just share it with that person, but you don't do
Yeah.
it as a person yourself.
Yeah, you don't take your own advice.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
hard.
the hope was that people reading this, no matter what their experiences are, because I know there are very few people out there who
Mm,
haven't had a horrible heartache.
mm,
Um, And my hope was that no matter what the situation was that brought them to that feeling, that they would feel that feeling
mm.
and not to manipulate it or exploit it, but to show readers that it's a normal feeling.
Yeah.
It's a hard feeling, it's a heavy feeling, and you are not alone.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, this is what it feels like. Yes, it's big and it's difficult and it's horrible and it feels overwhelming, and that
Yeah.
is how it is supposed to feel.
Yeah.
There's nothing broken about you that you feel it this hard. Does that make sense? So, yeah, the I can't quite remember what got us on that.
Um, yeah, neither. Character growth, probably.
Yeah.
But it's true. Eleanor was probably one of the characters who, like, not only did she have like a lot to deal with from the past, as the story develops, that girl is just getting like more trauma, more things coming back from the past, and it's just like punching it down, and she's just like, guys, guys, guys,
Yeah,
please.
it explodes. The whole book
Yeah.
actually occurs within a week. From the time
What?
from the time that she arrives in Night Glass
Oh my
until the
gosh.
end, it's 1 week um of just everything exploding. Because it's like the when you hold things for
Yeah.
so long and a big enough crack is made, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it all happens very quickly. Yeah.
That's so
It's like
much more
down.
intense.
Yeah.
Wow, in my head, like, I don't think I thought about the length of time, but I just assumed it would be at least a month, at least a month to 3 months, but no, a week.
Yeah,
Wow,
she was there for about a week for everything that
gosh, that's a
happened. Of
lot.
course, everything has built up before that. And
Yeah,
this is just we are coming in at the boiling point.
yeah. Oh,
When
yeah, that
everything
makes
is,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
when everything tips. Yeah.
Yeah. And with the publishing journey, and I know you've written Cruel Dark, was it?
The
Yes,
Dark.
Cruel Dark before. Um, and you've also had two books that hasn't been published, which I hope one day, maybe. But with the publishing process, especially starting off as an indie author, how does that look like for you? What is something the bookish community can, I guess, keep in mind or support or help out with that aspect of like a book release?
So with indie publishing, and people know so much more about what it means to be an indie publisher now because
Mm.
it's such it's more widely accepted than it once was. I've been in the quote unquote book community for gosh, almost 15 years. I started out as a book blogger.
Oh,
And
really?
back then, self-published authors, there was a lot of mystery around that. You didn't see too many of them. And uh, and yeah, it wasn't one of those things where there was a community built around it. So now I think people know that it is a path that comes with a lot of challenges.
Mm.
And the author typically wears all the hats, especially when they're
Yeah.
first starting out. Um, and so it's not just you get to sit down and you get to write and you get to focus on
Yeah.
that. You have to sit down and write, and after you've written, you have to do all of the editing yourself. If you want a team of people to help you
Yeah.
with like big reading, you organize that for yourself. You organize the tours, you organize this,
Hmm.
unless you're a publicist, if you can pay for that, or anything, right?
Mm.
Then you're you become a business. So you're not
Yeah.
just a writer, you're a business. You're juggling all of this, you're juggling everything. And there's so many pros to that, which is why some indie authors choose to stay indie,
Yeah.
even when they get big and they get attention from agents and publishers. Um, Now I think people know that
Yeah.
way more than they did before. And I see so much support. The Cruel
Mm.
Dark would not ever have gone where it went without the
Yeah.
support of the community and people talking it up and being present. You know, yeah, just kind of cheering you on, even if it's
Yeah.
not their type of book. And but they're part of your community. They see that you're an author. And so they talk
Yeah.
about your book. Hey, this indie author, you're looking for horror romance. I don't really like horror romance, but I know someone you can read.
Yeah.
Well, like it's that kind of community that's so, so important,
Yeah.
um, and lovely with
Okay.
indie publishing. Um, of course, with traditional publishing, there are a lot of pros and cons to consider as well. Yeah, it's one of those things that everyone has their own preference.
Yeah.
Preferences probably change as
Mm.
time goes on. Um, it's just for me, it's just kind of a journey, one foot in front of another. Let's see what happens
Yeah.
next. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
um, don't as far as I can see is the next book. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
You know, writing the
Very
next book.
fair. And I would
Yeah.
like you to continue seeing that direction because I need that.
I don't
Um,
have any place to stop, so
yeah, great. The marketing, how you guys get that down pat is insane to me. Like the graphics, the designing it, the promoting it, figuring out how to grab a reader's attention within like literally first 3 to 4 seconds of a clip because that's literally
Mhm.
how much people watch.
Yeah, it is finding the balance between
Yeah.
what the algorithms want for every
Mm.
single platform, and they're all
Yeah.
different and they're changing constantly, to what you can do
Yeah.
and what you want to do. Not, because learning videography is not something that's on my list.
No.
And so I see authors and bookstagrammers who have these beautiful videos and the quality is great and their editing is amazing. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And then I start trying and it's a disaster and it takes me hours.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
gosh.
no. So so it's like abandoned ship. And then you kind of like, what can I live without? And still be participating. Yeah, it's a lot to try to find what's not going to put you in the ground
Yeah.
because it's just so overwhelming. But what will work? And it's not just indie authors who are struggling with that. I have seen authors who I consider very big names in fantasy,
Mm.
and romantasy, and make posts about how, okay, I have to market this book so I can write more books. And I'm like, oh my God, we all have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we
Absolutely.
would not have to do it later. Like, you do. Ultimately, millions and millions of people, um, they can't read your book if they don't know about it. They can't
Yeah.
read your book if they don't know about you. And everyone is yelling at the same time. And so
Hmm.
you have to be able to get somebody's attention. And I
Yeah.
think that it's just been, it's always that way in marketing. It's just that
Mm.
now more people are having to do it. We have
Yeah.
so many more authors now,
Yeah.
with indie publishing, and all of these people are having to learn how to do marketing
Oh,
from the
absolutely.
bottom. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it constantly changes.
Oh my gosh.
There's there's
I
no like, you
know.
got it. And you know, like
And you
you've
have
mastered
to.
it.
That's the whole thing. Like
Yeah.
my first few book reviews, like very, 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 very first, was literally a photo of the book, and the next slides were on the notes app, whatever my thoughts are.
Uh-huh.
That's it. How different has it become now, where I'm doing like mood boards and graphics behind the book, attaching to the symbols in the book, writing my thoughts,
Yeah.
captions, what's the spice count, what's the cry count, what's the star
Hmm.
rating, all these different ways and making sure the music matches the book title and all the
Yeah.
concept of it. Oh, like, oh my God, it's a lot. But I mean, you find joy in it eventually, but the start of it is just overwhelming. And
Yeah.
it's a lot, and
It's a
I
new
can only
skill.
imagine. Yeah, my livelihood doesn't depend on it. So, but I can imagine for authors who it does, like you just have to. You have to be like go into push yourself into that crowd of screaming people and also scream just so three people can
Hmm.
hear it, and then the scream continues.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it helps knowing that people whose voices you believed were louder than yours are still having to do this.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
it makes you feel less alone. It's just kind of like it's just part of it. But that's what's so nice ultimately is when you do build a community and you
Mm,
do build a readership of readers who trust you, and who are interested in your work over time. And it takes a while, and you want it to take a while. I
yeah.
would much rather have a slow burn career that
Yeah.
builds up over time, and runs deep,
Yeah.
than have an experience where I have a debut that does amazing and everyone's so excited,
Yeah.
and then that's the best that there is the top
Yeah.
of career. Um, so I try to remind myself of that when I struggle. And I compare how am I doing now versus how it was when I
When you start, yeah.
first started. And see, there's growth. There's absolutely growth.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And it's hard not to
Yeah.
get, the confetti and the big party, and you know what I mean? Like that's what I think all of us want, that. It's validating.
Yeah.
Um, the viral posts.
Oh, yeah.
But, but yeah, I think slow and steady is the winner every single
Yeah.
time.
There's two
Mhm.
things I always like remind myself. One is never, you don't want to peak too early in life. Like it's better, as you said, slow burn career over
Mhm.
peak and nothing else after that.
Yeah.
And second, I always say the only reason I don't get views or I'm not going famous, I'm not going viral is because God's trying to keep me humble because he knows that I'll have the biggest head in the world. And that's a punishment for me. And I'm like, you know what? This is just God protecting me. That's all it is.
Well, and with virality, you're getting out there to people who are not your audience.
Yeah.
Um, they're coming because they like your meme, they think it's
Yeah.
fun, they think it's interesting, or maybe they like one specific aspect of something you've done in a post, and they follow you. And
Mm,
then they don't get that again, or they don't get it consistently.
yeah.
And so instead of unfollowing you, they just exist, and your engagement goes down.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
which affects you on a mental level because you're like, hold up. Like, does no one cares? And it's just, again, it's an algorithm
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
because
yeah.
they weren't your audience to begin with. They followed because like, it's a natural thing to do,
Mm,
and you see something that you really, really like. And yeah, it's just a minefield. It's
yeah.
all a minefield all
And
the
I
time.
think like what I've learned the most about like the bookish community with authors as well as bookstagrammers, TikTokers, everything in the book space is that the followers are not just followers, sorry, like the engagement, the comments, the interactions, the DMs, the conversations you're gonna have is not gonna be from people that are normal people, like normal accounts, like their private
Yeah.
personal accounts. It's gonna
Yeah.
be from other book creators, book content creators. That's where the support is going to come from. That's where the engagement is going to come from. And once you
Yeah.
sort of like understand that and tune into that, then you kind of start to see like, okay, why is it important to, or sorry, not why is it important, who the audience is, and what audience are you trying to attract? Because it's only people who are passionate about books are the ones that created book accounts to begin with because they wanted to develop that passion. Marketing in this day and age is so incredibly challenging compared
Mhm.
to back in the day when you would just walk into the library, look at what you like, pick up based on that, and walk
Yeah.
away. That's it.
Well, and there wasn't a whole lot else. Like I wasn't going to
Yeah.
go online and outside of Goodreads, I wasn't going to go online and look on social media for my next read.
No.
That was harder to do. It's harder to find those accounts. And now there's so many titles, so many things to read, so many things that sound amazing just everywhere, and
Yeah.
everybody's TBRs are already way too full.
Oh, we don't talk about
And
that.
yeah, I mean, I don't even, my computer is sitting on the other books I have, and then these ones that I recently got to try to read before the end of the year. And
Yep.
that's not even because we just enjoy, but if you're a reader, you
Yeah.
just enjoy books. And so, yeah, all of these things, you're trying to reach people, who would be interested in your book. You're trying to get them to be so interested that they will at least, save the reel and come back to it or add you on Goodreads so that they'll remember, because they probably have 100 books on their TBR already and they're
Yeah.
not going to buy your book right away. And um, all of these things that a marketing research professional will know and
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have to become a marketing research
Oh
professional.
my gosh, yes.
And you know, I've watched so many videos. I took a class. I mean, and still I have
That's
no idea.
amazing though. Like the dedication you put towards it, like is honestly very commendable. And I think that the most important thing, especially for indie authors, like I don't know about the publishing side of things, but with indie authors specifically, it's so hard to stay true to your story because the world is like sort of like pulling you into two minds all the time. But
Mhm.
it's so important to stay stubborn on that because the right readers will find you, and when they do, they'll appreciate your work like no one else. And like you said, a slow burn growth is obviously always better than like a massive peak and nothing after that because that just like stifles creativity. And I just don't think that like yeah, I'm not a fan of like how the marketing side of things, the tech side of things, and the AI side of things kind of like stifles those passions and creations. And I love to see when indie authors just kind of like stay true to their story, develop on that, and the audience will find them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely and I'm going to use this word, and I feel like it's not an over dramatic thing to say,
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful thing, I think, to watch these communities grow and indie publishing grow and change. And then you still have traditional publishing that feels steadfast and sturdy, in its own way
Yeah.
for people who are looking for that. But it's also changing. Um, and watching it change, yes, there are pain points,
Yeah.
absolutely pain points and things that irritate you, and you're just like, would you please? But it's also just so I feel lucky to be at this point,
Yeah.
um, at this threshold. Um, it feels nice, and I'm always very happy that I chose to indie publish first. I don't know what's coming in the future, but I'll never regret having done that. I've had a beautiful experience, and I've met some lovely people, and yeah, and getting opportunities like this to talk to readers and be on podcasts and like what?
Oh my
Like
gosh,
I never
stop
ever
it.
ever would have expected that
This is an honor
for
for
my
me a lot more than for you. Let me just say that
I don't
first.
know. Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's fun and it's lovely and exciting. And this is what I wanted was to be able
Yeah.
to talk about my work and talk to people who love to read and who love stories like this. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm very happy and I feel very lucky.
That's amazing. And I don't have anything else I want to ask. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to ask about the next book, but don't think you can talk about
Yeah.
that.
Like,
Gotta keep that to ourselves. But I think
yeah.
everyone should read Blackwicket, just to start off with, and everyone should fall in love with the story as much as I did. But is there anything you want the readers to take away from reading Blackwicket or from your stories in general?
Ultimately, the number one thing I hope anyone takes away after reading my books is that there's hope no
Oh,
matter what you go through, no matter what the characters have gone through, no
mm,
matter what you're experiencing in your life, no matter what the hardships have been or are currently, is that somehow,
mm,
some way. there's still hope, um, even if it's teeny tiny. And
Yeah.
I would be so happy to know that readers have taken that message with them
Yeah.
at the end of when they close the cover. Yep, so that's the whole I do believe that's the whole point and the whole goal for me.
That's very beautiful. That's absolutely like just yeah, very heartfelt, very wholesome. And exactly what I expected of you to say. And this is probably the most challenging question of it all. Um,
Mhm.
if you had to pick one song that would like represent your book,
Oh no.
I know, what do you reckon it would be?
Oh, oh, that's so I think
Yeah.
the for in order for my brain not to explode, I'm gonna go with a song that I think represents the two main characters really, really well.
Yeah.
And it does not match the vibes of the book
Mm.
necessarily because it is to me a pretty contemporary song.
Yeah.
But when I first heard it, it gave me all the vibes that I loved. And it's by Livingston and it's called Shadows.
Okay.
Um, and the whole song is pretty much about all the things that are hunting you and haunting you and the things that are scary and frightening in your life and it ends up being just you
Yeah.
and everything that's in your heart and in your mind. At least that's how I experienced the song. So yeah, I think that that would be a good song.
Well, I can't wait to listen to it, and I can't wait to go read my review and see how many things I've missed out, which now has been cleared
No,
through
don't
this
do that. I think
conversation.
your review is so lovely.
Oh my gosh, I'm not going to edit it, but I just want to know for my own sake. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where have I fell short?
Anybody's experience, whatever they
Yeah,
experience, I feel like there is, I would hope that there is a surface message that anybody can enjoy. And then for anybody who reads very, very,
yeah,
very like deeply, that there's more for them as well. So yeah,
yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong
Oh
necessarily
yeah.
experience.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I really
you. I
appreciate you
really
taking the
appreciate it.
time.
Yeah,
And
of course. It was fun.
yeah, and it was so lovely chatting with you. And I absolutely love seeing all your content. And I absolutely can't wait for your next book, and reread Blackwicket very soon. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Alicia. I really appreciate you inviting me.